Tonight, a historic and contentious day on Capitol Hill as healthcare reform finally goes before the full House. I'm Jeff Glor. Also tonight, scene of the crime. As the Fort Hood investigation presses on, new details emerge about the shooting, and we'll have an exclusive interview with one of the victims.
I heard the yell, and then I heard shots fired.
A mixed message on the H1N1 flu. Growing confusion over who is most at risk. And Runway Priest. His fashion designs and his sense of mission make him a genuine man of the cloth.
This is the CBS Evening News with Jeff Glor.
And good evening. After months of proposals and counter-proposals and often heated town hall debates, healthcare reform is headed toward its first big test tonight on the floor of the House of Representatives. Both sides brought out their heavy hitters for today's crucial showdown, including for Democrats, their biggest name of all. Kimberly Dozier has the latest from Washington.
Well, the debate has stretched late into the evening here, but the Democrats believe they do have the 218 votes they need to pass this first major piece of health care legislation.
It started with a rare Saturday session this morning.
I object.
To revise my remarks.
Allow both sides 30 additional minutes.
And it took all of 15 minutes to turn ugly.
It's obvious that members of Congress need to be heard.
And at times theatrical.
She doesn't want the government to take over health care.
Not a single Republican was ready to back the bill.
This is a wrong step for America. This bill costs too much. It is too expensive to afford.
Their main argument, don't tinker with the healthcare industry, which makes up a fifth of America's economy, when unemployment just hit 10.2%.
We need jobs. If your kitchen sink is leaking, you fix the sink. You don't take a wrecking ball to the entire kitchen.
That was echoed in a small but vocal GOP rally outside on the Capitol steps. They unfurled the nearly 2,000-page bill, which they say is so long and complicated, few have actually read it, and even fewer understand what it will do. Conservative Democrats had concerns as well. Some were soothed by a proposed amendment to ban the use of federal funds for abortion, others by assurances illegal immigrants would not be allowed to buy insurance under the public option. And some got lobbied directly by the top Democrat in office. The commander-in-chief made a rare visit to Capitol Hill today. He then reminded Americans what he says is in it for them.
It is a bill that is fully paid for and will actually reduce our long-term federal deficit.
The Congressional Budget Office says the House bill would cost $1 trillion over 10 years, but that it would reduce the deficit by $109 billion by 2019. But the real price tag depends on what happens after this House bill is combined with whatever comes out of the Senate. And that's not done yet.
The White House still hopes to see a health care bill on the president's desk by the end of this year, but Senate staffers believe that will probably slip into 2010. Jeff?
Kimberly Dozier from Washington tonight. Kimberly, thank you. We turn now to the tragedy at Fort Hood, which left 13 people dead and 29 others wounded this week. At a solemn ceremony late today, Colonel John Rossi read out the names and hometowns of those who died.
The 13 who gave their lives in service to their nation were Lieutenant Colonel Juanita L. Warman, 55, Major Labardo Carvalho, 52.
The reading of the names of the 13 dead was immediately followed by a moment of silence. At the same time, investigators continue to push ahead with their effort to learn more about the accused gunman, Major Nidal Malik Hasan. Dean Reynolds is at Fort Hood tonight.
While flags fly at half-staff at Fort Hood honoring the dead, the enormity of what lies ahead for the wounded in Thursday's shooting was spelled out at a nearby hospital where they're being treated.
There's a possibility that some of these patients will be physically impaired for the rest of their life, and there's certainly no doubt that many of them will be psychologically impaired for the rest of their lives.
Interviews are slowly beginning to paint a sharper picture of the incident and the suspect, 39-year-old Army psychiatrist Major Nidal Malik Hasan. For example, there's been concern that in the chaotic attempts to stop the shooter, some soldiers may have been victimized by friendly fire, but Fort Hood officials don't think so.
It's not a friendly fire incident. The confirmation of that obviously will always be after autopsies are performed.
Witnesses say Hasan kept firing 100 rounds even after he was struck 4 times in a shootout with policewoman Kimberly Munley. While he remains unconscious at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, relatives and friends are providing more details. That Hassan was distressed about a pending tour of duty overseas and had hired a lawyer to block it. That he had loudly objected to the U.S. war on terror as a war on Islam, and that he felt harassed because of his faith. An uncle from Ramallah on the West Bank recalled his complaint.
I recall a couple of things maybe. He told me that one time they draw a camel and put in his car, they say camel jockey.
No religion in this.
Officials at the suspect's local mosque told CBS News today that the FBI had visited with them since the shooting, and they said they are cooperating in the investigation. Today, during his weekly radio address, President Obama gave voice to what many here at the fort are feeling.
We can't fully know what leads a man to do such a thing. But what we do know is that our thoughts are with every single one of the men and women who were injured at Fort Hood.
Fort Hood is planning a memorial service next Tuesday, and the president will be among those in attendance. Jeff?
Dean Reynolds joining us from Texas tonight. Dean, thank you. One of those who did survive the attack but was wounded is Nathan Hewitt. The soldier from Indiana was released from the hospital last night, and today he spoke exclusively with Don Teague.
2 days after narrowly escaping death at Fort Hood, and just hours after his release from the hospital, Corporal Nathan Hewitt still can't believe what happened was real.
I can't make any sense of it.
Hewitt, who's set to deploy for a second Iraq tour in January, was waiting for a flu shot Thursday in a room full of soldiers when he heard someone yell.
What was the yell?
Sounded like the beginning of a Muslim prayer.
Allah Akbar.
Yeah.
The next thing Hewitt heard was gunfire, so fast he thought it was a string of firecrackers.
Then you started seeing the person start to come around and the shots just kept coming.
Hewitt ducked for cover but was hit by 2 bullets. Still, he and other victims thought it was a drill.
I thought they were like training, you know, react, see how quick people react and what people do to react.
Hewitt only realized it was real after first crawling, then running to safety and seeing he was bleeding.
I didn't actually realize I'd been shot until they took me into another building and was like, pull up your pant leg, and blood started coming out both sides of it, pretty much.
He still can't believe a fellow soldier would turn on his own. Today, Hewitt says he's praying for those lost and others who were injured, and hoping his injury doesn't delay his deployment to Iraq, where he says at least he knows who the enemy is.
Corporal Hewitt says he never got a good look at the shooter, but might have acted differently if he had. He at least might have known the bullets were real and tried to stop him. Jeff?
Okay, Don Teague tonight. Don, thank you. In Orlando, Florida, Jason Rodriguez, who is charged with murdering 1 person and wounding 5 at his former company on Friday, was ordered held without bail today. His lawyer claimed Rodriguez is mentally ill and could not cope with the stress of divorce, bankruptcy, and unemployment. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, meet the real high priest of fashion. But first, what to believe about the H1N1 flu vaccine. With the H1N1 flu now widespread in the U.S., a new statewide poll tonight finds that a majority of Californians do not plan to be vaccinated. But even many Americans who do want the vaccine say the government's message is garbled and ever-changing. Hari Srinivasan has more.
Hi, how you doing today?
Good, how are you, Dr.
Mary Katz already has twin boys and is 9 months pregnant with twin girls.
When do they come? In 1 week, right? 1 week, that's right.
She is in one of the prime target groups the CDC said should get the H1N1 flu vaccine. She called her OBGYN, the CDC, and Health and Human Services for 4 weeks trying to get the shot, but had no luck.
Every week I came here and I'd see the sign that's not available yet, but we want you to get it.
Right. Katz's Dr. Victor Klein said that while the message is clear, the delivery is slow.
The CDC, the health department said everyone should get it, but it's in short supply.
The CDC said Friday that the amount of vaccine available has doubled in the past 2 weeks, up to 38 million doses. But a new survey says only 1 in 3 parents was successful in getting the vaccine for their children when they tried.
Our pediatrician didn't get any doses.
To some parents, the CDC's messages are confusing.
There is no message. That's the problem.
Or there are too many messages.
Children and young adults up through age 24.
People under the age of 65.
Pregnant women.
People who are very obese.
Parents or other caretakers of babies under 6 months of age.
Today, the Gibbs family was able to get 3 out of their 4 kids vaccinated, but not Alexa. She didn't fit the age requirement at this clinic.
You had to be older than 4 to get the shot here. If that was on the website, I didn't see it. So I was disappointed by that.
To me, the most vulnerable. She's only 13 months.
I'm very mindful of the frustration people have had, whether it's from information gaps or from just the basic availability of vaccine.
Today's your special day. We got your flu shot in today. They came in today.
Thank you.
Mary Katz got her shot just in time, a week before she's due to give birth to her twins.
Thank you, North Shore. Thank you, everyone.
The CDC expects 8 million more doses of the vaccine to be available next week. But exactly where those vaccines can be found and who gets them is still a source of concern for parents. Hari Srinivasan, CBS News, New York.
At ceremonies in New York City today, the Navy's newest ship was commissioned, the assault ship USS New York, built partly with steel salvaged from the World Trade Center. There was a moment of silence for the victims of the Fort Hood attack today, and then New York's first crew ran on board on the traditional command, "Man our ship." Just ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, one idea that might create a lot of new jobs. Unemployment in October jumped to a 26-year high of 10.2%. If you include those people who've stopped looking for work, it pushes that number to 17.5%. One proposed remedy for skyrocketing unemployment involves offering an incentive to employers. Our senior White House correspondent Bill Plant explains.
Candidate Obama proposed it.
I'm proposing to give our businesses a new American job tax credit.
Despite that promise, a job creation tax credit hasn't been on the administration's radar. But now, with unemployment the highest it's been since 1983, the idea is getting a second glance. The state of Maryland already has a version of the plan, providing employers up to $1,500 for each new job. It helped Century Engineering hire about 80 people over 5 years.
Ultimately, what we did was invest in a strategy to grow our business.
Economists say that's exactly how the plan is supposed to work.
The general idea of it is if you make the hiring of new employees cheaper, employers will be more likely to hire them.
The Economic Policy Institute has a plan they say would create as many as 5 million jobs over 2 years. It would credit an employer 15.3% of the cost of a new employee in the first year. For example, if hiring the worker costs the company $50,000, the tax credit would reduce that cost to just over $42,000. Critics argue there's no way to tell whether those jobs would have been created anyway without government help.
The firms that would hire workers anyway would just get the tax credit for doing something they would have done. There's no additional benefit to the economy, yet it costs the government money.
The Economic Policy Institute estimates their plan would cost about $80 billion, or about $27,000 per job created. But they say that savings, like not having to pay unemployment to the newly hired, would make the cost far less.
We think that the net cost will be much, much lower, something on the order of $20 billion.
But even Century Engineering's president says tax credits alone aren't enough of a reason to take on someone new.
We don't want to be, just because there's tax credits out there, adding another staff person. There has to be the engine of the economy driving the growth of our staff.
And if employers like Century Engineering don't feel that the economy is strong enough for them to begin hiring again, unemployment will continue to be a major political problem for the White House and the Democrats. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner told a meeting of G20 finance chiefs in Scotland today that the high U.S. jobless rate shows it is still a, quote, tough economic environment. Geithner called for continued stimulus spending. Coming up on tonight's CBS Evening News, a poignant field of remembrance. As the September 11th terrorist attacks unfolded in New York and Washington, with 3 hijacked planes crashing into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, a 4th plane hovered over Pennsylvania, on course for the nation's capital. But an uprising by the passengers and crew of United Flight 93 thwarted the terrorist plans. And that is tonight's Weekend Journal, a groundbreaking today in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, for a permanent memorial to their sacrifice. 8 years later, the field is very much the same. Quiet, pastoral. Few physical hints of the scars left on 9/11, when United Flight 93 hit the ground nose first.
Our challenges pale in comparison to what our loved ones faced on that fateful morning.
That fateful morning, a group of strangers, learning of the attacks on New York and Washington, voted to take their plane back. The place where their journey ended, in Shanksville, 80 miles from Pittsburgh, has become a pilgrimage site. A small monument lists the names of those who were on board. Donald Peterson was one of them.
It's a field of honor because it memorializes the sacrifice of the 40 passenger and crew members who gave their lives to protect the nation's capital.
Don Peterson's grandsons were among the children shoveling dirt at the groundbreaking ceremony.
Let's roll.
For what families hope will be a teachable memorial.
The message of Flight 93 is that we all must participate.
Most aboard Flight 93 were from New Jersey, where the plane took off, or California, where it was headed. Deora Bodley was the youngest, a 20-year-old college student returning to California after visiting friends.
To have the children turning the ground and knowing that Deora had a love and passion for children just really warmed my heart.
The memorial will feature long paths and groves of trees. A tower of wind chimes will rise 93 feet. The design was picked from hundreds entered in a competition 4 years ago.
To try to create a sense of reverence and awe, and we've used the land to do that.
So far, 50,000 donors have given $60 million to see this memorial built. The government has contributed millions more. The memorial will be the focal point of a 2,000-acre park run by the National Park Service.
We in the United States of America forever will be thankful for what they did.
A legacy of heroism for Americans who never knew when they'd be called upon to act. The main part of the Flight 93 memorial is due to be built by September 11th, 2011, the 10th anniversary of the attacks. And you can learn more about that memorial at honorflight93.org. Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, a designing priest who helps people on 2 continents. He is not a household name like Calvin Klein or Tommy Hilfiger, at least not yet. But a parish priest in New York City is beginning to make his name in the world of high-end fashion, and he's doing some good at the same time. Here's Bianca Solorzano.
When Father Andrew O'Connor isn't tending to his congregation at Holy Family Church, he's in his makeshift workshop next door, designing his clothing line.
A lot of things seem to conspire to say, I think this is a really good thing to do.
The line is marketed under the label Goods of Conscience. Father O'Connor uses natural fibers grown in Guatemala, and workers in New York City hand sew each piece, allowing him to charge a premium price.
How much does this cost?
This is $8.95.
$8.95.
Yep, that's a steal.
Wow.
His flair for creative design started early in life.
My mom taught me to sew, and so I would make things going up.
Now Father O'Connor's collection is gaining the attention of mainstream fashion magazines and getting rave reviews.
Yeah, I'm making one of these in tan.
He's remaking this dress for an editor at Harper's Bazaar. In June, Vogue magazine showcased actress Cameron Diaz in a pair of his custom-designed shorts. Vogue's editor, Anna Winter, called them the perfect fit.
I mean, that's a huge deal.
It is a huge deal, yeah. It's got quite a big blessing.
All this started 4 years ago. Father O'Connor participated in a retreat to a Guatemalan village where Father Stanley Rother, a noted missionary, was murdered while working with poor Mayan Indians. Rother's work inspired O'Connor to sign an exclusive deal with 24 Mayans to produce the materials, giving them much-needed jobs.
They are a world treasure.
O'Connor's product line also supports the church's mission here in the Bronx, providing $14 an hour sewing jobs, community development, and a valuable lesson.
This project allows young people to see that this place is good, that they're good, that they belong here.
O'Connor says the message behind his design enables him to weave his religious and fashion cloths together.
Do you feel that this was your calling?
Yes, I think this is part of my calling.
A calling that tailors popular fashion and people's fate. Bianca Solorzano, CBS News, New York.
That is the CBS Evening News tonight. Russ Mitchell will be here tomorrow night. I'm Jeff Glor, CBS News in New York. Good night.